anything you've been putting off. Maybe you say, someday I'll do that, or when I have more time. Whether the item is a big bucket list item or something smaller like going on a hike, now is the time to start your Say Yes list. And we have the perfect process to help you turn these items into reality. Join thousands of others with our free Say Yes list template at thesayyesexperience.com/list. It'll help you stop living in that someday and start making those list items come true today. So download it now at thesayyesexperience.com/list. Welcome to the Say Yes Experience podcast, where we inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into possibility. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. If you're new here, welcome. We're thrilled you're here. I'm Jessica Rector. I co-founded the Say Yes Experience with my then 9-year-old son Blaze, based off his idea to let's just say yes to things. I'm one of the top experts on burnout, and companies and conferences hire me to present on mental health, wellness, and burnout prevention. As the #1 best-selling author of 11 books, keynote speaker, and a burnout specialist, I've seen so much with our clients. The Say Yes Experience was started to help you really start living, to do the things that light you up, have more fun, and turn your dreams, or what we call Say Yes list items, into reality. So thank you for investing in yourself and being here. Now let's make it happen. Will Turner set a goal for himself: 6 Ironman in the year he turned 60 years old. When he found out that someone had done something similar, he was devastated. So then he set a much, much bigger goal. And not only did he achieve it, he eradicated limiting beliefs around age and set a new world record. Then please help me welcome our guest today, Will Turner.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, Will. I love your story. It's so interesting and so inspiring. So tell us a little bit about it and your Say Yes experience.
Okay. There's a lot to cover, but I'll give you the short version.
Yeah.
I've been an endurance athlete for a number of years, about 10 years. And when I say endurance, the longer distance stuff, I've been an athlete a little longer than that. Through lots of trials and tribulations, I wasn't considered a natural athlete by any stretch of the imagination. But I landed in endurance sports and just have kind of continued that journey over the last decade, first doing marathons, then doing Ironmans, and then doing ultra events, which are longer than those. When I turned 60 years old in 2018, I decided to do 60 Ironmans the year I turned 60, which is basically doing one every 6 days. Little did I know at the time, the world record was 44 Ironmans in a year, but that's kind of where I landed, and I've been going ever since. I'm 65 now, and got another big goal for myself set for later this year.
So, Will, the record was 44. Why didn't you just say, I'm going to do 45?
Well, I was turning 60 and I wanted a BHAG. I wanted a big, hairy, audacious goal for turning 60. And the funny story is that I decided that I was going to do 6 Ironmans a year, turn 60. And I thought that was a huge BHAG. And a couple of years before I was turning 60, because as an athlete, you're often thinking of the next age bracket. So when you get to the next age bracket, what are you going to do? So I did my first Ironman when I turned 50. And then I thought when I turned 60, maybe I could do 6 in a year. And I thought that was huge.
Yeah.
And I literally mentioned it to the first person I shared it with, said, oh, like Sam, who was a local triathlete in my community in Virginia, who had done 6 Ironmans a year, he turned 60, unbeknownst to me. And so all of a sudden she took the wind out of my sails, and I was like, well, that's not very much of a BHAG if the first person I mentioned it to goes, oh, like so-and-so. So I did what they call the 10X factor, where you take your goal and you multiply it by 10. I didn't do it immediately. Trust me. I went back and I was deflated, and I had to do a lot of mental gymnastics of like, what do I do now? But eventually I landed on doing 60 when I turned 60 instead of 6. And that totally changed the game for me and how I needed to prepare and what I needed to do and everything else.
So, well, you go from 6, right, which you think was a BHAG to begin with, right, which sounds, for someone like me who's never done one, that sounds huge, right? 6 right. in a year. a lot.
Right.
And then you say, well, okay, like so-and-so, that person said like so-and-so who did 6 when they turned 60. So instead of saying 7 or even 10, you go, oh, I'm going to go from 60, which you thought was a BHAG, or 6 that you thought was a BHAG, to 60. Like, that was also BHAG. Why did you go? That seems like so extreme. Why did you not just say, okay, well, I'm going to go to 10 or 15 or even 20, 60?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of reasons, but I mean, 60 at 60 sounds a lot better than 10 at 60, right? It also scared the crap out of me. I when I did my first Ironman in 2009, I found a quote that you probably have heard of that resonated with me, which was, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. And I've used that as a litmus test over the years, gone up against big challenges.
Wow.
And this really scared me. It scared me and it excited me. And I thought, I had no idea whether it was possible or not. Obviously, it hadn't been done before, and certainly not at my age.
Right.
I definitely decided to I had a couple of years before I was turning 60. I really did my homework and kind of reverse engineered it to figure out whether it was even possible. So I started testing myself both mentally and physically over the next couple of years to see if I could wrap my head around it, and whether it was even possible. And I got to the point where I believed I could do it, and I thought, well, let's just go for it. There's a saying that, when your passion and purpose is greater than your fears and your excuses, you'll find a way. And so
I love that.
That's exactly find a way to do it.
Did you actually do the 60 in year 60?
I did. And
you actually did it. Didn't you actually do one more than 60?
61, yeah. So there are not 60 Ironman distance races in the world in 1 year. So I had to do a combination of actual races and on your own events, where I had to follow the race rules, but basically be out on my own on a course with somebody there to get it done. So the very first race of the year was one that was an official race down in Naples, Florida. It was on January 6th, and that was a great way to kick off the year and do my first one. Well, my birthday, when I actually turned 60, was actually January 7th, so the next day. So I did the race on January 6th. I talked to my daughter, who's grown, the day after, and she asked me how it was. I told her, and she goes, "Dad, that one doesn't count." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You weren't 60 when you did that." I said, "It's the year I turned 60, not being 60. So throughout the year, we just had this running little, back and forth. Whenever I was out on the road and I'd talk to her, she'd say, "Dad, what number are you on?" I'd say 42. She'd say 41. And so at the end of the year, after I'd done my 60th one, I went back out a couple days later while I was still 60 and did another one. So I did 61 in a year, and 60, I was 60 years old. Just to
I love it.
My daughter, don't you love your kids?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, you went from 6 to 60. Like, first of all, that proves oftentimes, even when we first think of a BHAG, this big goal, right?
Right.
It's not big enough, because as you said, 6 at 60 was your BHAG. And it just showed that when you pushed yourself a little bit more, or in your instance, what you could actually achieve. Oftentimes, even though big whatever we think, oh my gosh, this is so huge, maybe aren't as big as what we're capable of doing.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's one thing that this journey taught me, is that we limit ourselves, right? Even when we set big goals for ourselves, we have so much more potential. And we don't realize that potential because we're held back by what we believe in ourselves, our own fears, our own insecurities, all the things that keep us from pushing forward. And what I've found is, if you have that passion and purpose, but also there's a lot of persistence and grit and just resiliency that you need to muster and bring to the table. But when you do and have that 100% commitment, you may fail. And I have certainly had big things I've gone after and not so big things I've gone after that I failed. But if I use those failures as stepping stones, then the next one is a little bit easier, or the next one you have a little bit more to give than you thought you had. And so we definitely have so much more potential and don't realize. And I think that applies to anything that we do in life.
So how did you prepare from 1 to 6 and then 6 to 60? Because you had to do preparation to even go from 1 to 6. And then once your friend told you that, then you had to do a whole nother set of preparation to go from 6 to 60. So how did you prepare yourself, not just physically, but mentally for that?
Well, mentally, I mean, the biggest thing mentally, I call it mental gymnastics or mental excavation, where you really have to look at what is limiting you and figure out how you can do more and if you can do more. So it's really breaking down those limiting beliefs that might be holding you back. I had experience as an endurance athlete. And one of the reasons why like I said at the beginning, I'm not a natural born athlete. I'm a good endurance athlete because I have willed myself and done the work to get there. I don't have to be the fastest. I don't have to be the strongest. I just have to keep going. And, I've learned to push through those moments where it's really, really tough. It's really the reason I've stayed in the sport so long. I call it finding the sweet spot, because it's that moment. And when you're training hard, or when you're going out on, long bike rides or long runs or long swims or whatever it is you're doing to train for it. And certainly when you're doing long races, you're going to hit a place where you're tired, you're achy, you hurt. Every cell in your body wants you to quit. And you have to figure out, do I quit and stop, or do I keep going, right? And in that moment, there is nothing sweet. You're in the pain cave, you're feeling awful, and you just want nothing more than to lie up in a little ball and stop, When you push through and you're able to achieve more than you thought you could, then it's like drinking the sweet elixir afterwards, because you become a more confident version, a better version of yourself, where you just feel more alive and more accomplished and like more invincible. I mean, we all have our struggles, but when you push through a struggle that's really hard and make it to the other side, it's like, wow, I did it. I can do more than I thought I could.
Yes.
And it makes the next challenge that much easier to go up against, because you've done hard things, and you start to recognize that you're capable of doing those hard things. You just have to keep at it and keep pushing. So I'd gotten pretty good at the mental side. I was certainly worried about the physical side. Your old body hold up with that kind of physical exertion week after week after week. And luckily, I'm a pretty durable athlete. I consider myself a Zen athlete, in the sense that I pay attention to my body. So if something is bothering me, I don't, just push through. I pay attention to it. And that's because I've learned the hard way, right? I've had, I just wanted to push through because I could get through it. But the reality was it was stupid, and I should have paid attention. So I've learned the hard way to pay attention to my body. But I also know that I have to do the hard work. So as I was leading up to the 60 at 60, 2 years before, I did 25 Ironmans on my own.
Wow.
Where I just went out on a random day, and I'd do an Ironman, and then 3 weeks later I'd do another one, and I would sometimes it'd be shorter distances, but I just did enough, more than I'd ever done before. Test my body and be able to play with nutrition, be able to play with recovery, be able to see how my body held up, and just get more confidence and strengthen my body, so that I would feel more comfortable and confident tackling the 60 at 60. So, I essentially did all that mental and physical preparation for the couple of years before. I had a really good base to build on. So I was able to kind of take with where I was and build on it and get to a place where I thought I could do it. Now, there were so many people that told me, I'm crazy, you're stupid, you're going to hurt yourself, you're too old. I mean, I had all the naysayers come out of the woodwork.
Right.
And I realized at first it disappointed me, it kind of frustrated me because I was sharing this with closer friends at first.
Right.
And a lot of these friends were running friends, and, I thought they would be really good for me. And they were the ones telling me, Will, what are you doing? This is crazy, and then I realized that, they were speaking of their beliefs in themselves, not mine, right? Where they saw as a limiting factor when I didn't see it as myself. And they didn't know what I was willing to do to get ready physically, emotionally, mentally for what needed.
Exactly.
As long as I could focus on the plan, then I could keep my head in the game and do it.
So let's unpack some of that, Will. So when, so you're going to find naysayers and those type of people everywhere, right? No matter what we try and do. And we cannot allow, just like you've proven and what I share during my keynotes as well, like we can't allow those naysayers to impact us, right? Once they start getting in to our thinking, they'll build up camp. They'll build up a tent. They'll camp overnight in there, right? And then that starts to impact us, right? Then you start second guessing. You have self-doubts. Then you'll say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do 60 at 60. Maybe I should scale it way back. Maybe I should only do 6 at 60, right? And then you would have never known what you were capable of if you start listening to other people and all they're doing is just piling their own stuff onto us, right? They're just piling. And it's our choice whether we want to buy into that, we want to believe that as our truth as well, or we want to say, no, that's about you. That's not about me. I'm going to be excited about me. I'm going to see firsthand if I can do it and what I'm actually capable of. So I love that you express that you have these naysayers. No, I'm still going to do it. Like, end of the day, on you on yourself and your skills and your abilities. And even if you didn't have everything at that time and in that moment, you worked up to it, right? You did the mental preparation, you did the physical. So I love that you did that. When you were talking about the mental preparation, what kept ringing in my brain is everything you were saying pertains to life too. Right? Whenever you sit there and challenges come up, struggles come up, are you going to push through them? Or are you going to say, well, no, I just don't think I can do it. I'm just going to go back the other way. I always say, you know what's behind you, but you don't know what's in front of you unless you actually get through whatever it is, those challenges and those issues are to the other side of that.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you did to help you just persevere and get to the other side of that mentally? Because I think a lot of things in life, you have to first start with that mental aspect and create that solid foundation because, well, if you didn't believe you could do it, you wouldn't have been able to get physically prepared for it. So it starts with the mental to then get physically prepared. Do you want to start saying yes, but you just don't know where to start? And oftentimes when we don't know where to start, we just don't start. So we created an ebook just for you. We put together 101 ways to say yes. In this ebook, ideas big and small, things that only take a small amount of time, like 1 to 2 minutes. Whether you're saying yes to yourself, in your family, relationships, or pushing yourself lovingly outside of your comfort zone with adventures, it's all made to really help you become more of your rock star self. So you can get this ebook at thesayyesexperience.com/book, BOOK. So if you want to start saying yes, or maybe you need some ideas on how to say yes because you get so caught up in being busy and doing tasks and projects or doing laundry and cooking that the time flies by and you want to spend time with your family, but you just don't know how to say yes. Those ideas just don't come to you. We put it together to make it super, super easy for you. So go to thesayyesexperience.com/book to get your copy today and start saying yes now. Are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or burned out? We get it. You're not alone. In fact, according to our research, 79% of the workforce is in burnout and almost half are in extreme burnout. In fact, it's the number one reason why people are leaving organizations. They're burned out. They're looking for something more. They're looking for something better. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have your solution. It's called Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout. 52 keys to prevent, break through, and eliminate burnout. You can find your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Now, this is a great tool that you can use with yourself, with your colleagues, within your organization. Everyone can get one, and you can go through one a week with them. And at the end, you can say, what was something that worked this week? What was the success you had? So you can champion and encourage each other. You can also ask what were the challenges and issues that came up, so you can mastermind and brainstorm around those to keep those from coming up in the future. So make sure you get your copy at jessicarector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is your beliefs are everything, right? You have to believe it first, as you were saying. So your beliefs impact your attitudes. Your attitudes impact your behavior, and your behavior impacts your results. And so if you don't go back to the root, the belief, if your belief is shaky or your belief isn't there, then your attitude is going to be, I'm not sure if I can do this. You're not going to have the confidence or the will to push through. The behavior is going to be, maybe you're giving a half-ass effort, or you're waiting for failure to come. So you're anticipating, when something goes bad, that's just proof that I can't do it.
Yes.
Versus, this is just part of the learning process. I don't have to do it yet, but if I master this, if I work on that, if I make myself better, stronger, faster, whatever, I can get through this. And it's that process. And throughout you can imagine for each of the Ironmans, I mean, there's a own little mini saga story where I faced, either terrible conditions. I mean, from windstorms, sandstorms, and then Death Valley with, 40, 50, 60 mile gale force winds, to swimming with alligators and sharks, to, issues where I had dehydration and I was throwing up on the side of the road, but I had to keep going. Actually, I was, puking my guts out. There were so many things challenges that I was facing with each and every race that in the race I would get, and usually multiple places in the race, I'd get to that sweet spot where things were going bad and I'd want to quit, and I was tired and hurt and whatever. And I had to bring that will, forward to push through whatever it was that I was going through, right? There's I'm guessing that you probably know, but probably some of your audience members don't know, maybe Brene Brown. A lot of people know about Brene Brown. She has some great quotes, and one of her quotes is, you choose courage or comfort. And this is paraphrasing, but you can't choose both at the same time. And I think we get in those dark moments when we start to face that struggle or those challenges, we're in a very vulnerable state, and there's a lot of fear and trepidation that can come into place. But when we choose that courage, we choose to put ourselves out there, we choose to give it our best shot versus away from it, then, that's when we become that better version of ourselves. Even if we fail, we feel good that we push through, right? My biggest failure actually was I did a quintuple Ironman distance, which is a 703 mile race. And I basically ran out of time at 696 miles out of the 703 miles. What? And this particular race was being covered by the New York Times. And they have the feature of this article is all these people doing this race that I'm doing. And it's a very small field when you get to races that size, right? And there's a picture of me at one point towards the end of the race. I was laying on a cot, just taking a break because I was physically and, I can't even go into all the physical issues I was dealing with knotted muscles and cramps and
pain
everywhere. Right. So that they catch me laying on a cot, taking a short, like 5-minute break, and out of this 6-day race that goes 24 hours a day, nonstop.
Oh my goodness.
And I kind of got drool coming out of my mouth. I'm laying there. I look half dead. My eyes are closed. And the caption is something like, Will Turner, attempting to complete the quintuple, a 703-mile race. Then period, he failed. He failed. That it was nothing about it. He made it 696 miles. It was he failed. And that was like New York, it was
96 miles. So seriously.
But that failure was such a blessing, right? Because, had I made those extra 7 miles, I would have kind of, in my own mind, not externally, I would have thumped on my chest and said, Will, you did it. What a great job, right? But that failure, showed me that I've got limits that I had to push against. And I pushed harder in that race than any race I've ever been in. I went through more pain and suffering than I've ever been before. And I kept going until I couldn't go anymore. But I also realized that there were lessons to learn in that process. And so that basically gave me the will to keep pushing. I mean, that was in 2016. So my 60 at 60 started in 2018. So it was part of the fire in me and to push me for the 60 at 60. I had come off this really big failure. But I mean, you have to look at those failures as stepping stones. Those stepping stones of learning and how do I move forward. You can either accept them as failures and say, I can't do this.
Right.
Hey, what can I learn from this? How can I get better? And it had the will to get better, right? You have to want it. And it definitely made me want it. It showed me that I can keep going more than I thought I could. Mm-hmm. I've got more in me. And so,
yeah, absolutely. I love that what you're saying about comfort versus courageous, because that's really what the Say Yes experience is about. We feel that there's so many people out there that are just living every day in comfort. They're not going out there and truly living. If they were just to say yes one time, how that can really transform everything. Like, just think of your experience. Granted, you had to continue to say yes, but your first yes when 60, and then when someone said, whoa, someone else did that, then you kind of were racking your brain or thinking, okay, well, what's another BHAG? What's something else I can do? And then you originally said yes to the 60 at 60. Then yes, you had to keep saying yes every time after that. But if you didn't have that first initial yes to 60 at 60, nothing else after it would have happened. But if you were just said, well, I'm just going to stay with maybe my 1 because that's my comfort level, then all those lessons that you would have learned, you would have never known what you were fully capable of going from 1 to 60.
I have to show you a little thing that I've got on this card here that I love. It says, you didn't wake up mediocre today. Or you didn't wake up today to be mediocre. And just to tie into what you said, we so often just, accept this comfort level of, through the day. And so often we have our blinders on and we just go through the motions. And, when we stop and think, we can do that day after day, week after week, month year after year. I'm 65 right now. And so I have a little bit of, looking back on life and going, I don't want to be 85 and look back and go, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had tried that. I think we so often just get in our comfort zones and kind of get comfortable with the status quo that we don't shake ourselves up. I have so many things here. I was talking to a good friend of mine in New Zealand this week, and we were both going after like, shake it up, baby. It's like, we've got to get out of that comfort zone. We've got to find things that really will excite us.
Yes.
It can be endurance sports. It can be playing the violin. It can be being the best mother or father. It can be, a career goal. It can be whatever you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Really, like you're saying, say yes to the things that you might have a little trepidation to, because
it's so crazy, because it's not even necessarily being out and BHAG into the world. It's just about the little small things that we immediately say no to, that if we just said yes to, would shake up this day, this moment, this hour. And so often people are saying, oh, I can't wait till today's over. Like they're wishing the day over because something happened and they're like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. Those type of things. Well, if you just said yes to one small thing, even if it's a 90-second thing, sometimes my son will say, Mommy, let's try this new recipe at dinner, or let's play lava, where I just jumping on the couch trying to get from one side of the room to the other. It just fills me with joy, and it's so much laughter and so fun. But granted, we're a little competitive, which makes it a little bit better.
Right.
But the thing is sometimes those moments only take 60 seconds, 90 seconds. You have to cook dinner anyway, so try something a little bit new or different, something that's going to bring you joy as opposed to the same thing day after day. You're going to work, you're coming home, you're stressed, you're burned out, you're overwhelmed. You got to do it again the next day. When you're just sitting there every day in comfort, you're also, and I have a trigger with the word contentment, because contentment to me means comfort. Like you're just sitting there like this. Mediocre. You're not pushing yourself. You're not growing. You're not learning. You're not developing. And so I want people to grow and learn and to get out there and really say yes, so they can, exactly what you're doing, is just reach more of their potential, but also continue to really be great at whatever it is and reach a great level of what we call rock starness, like just that epitome of what you can do.
Yeah. And obviously, you feel very accomplished when you're being a badass, so to speak. But I went swimming this morning as right, and I'm training for an event where I have to swim 15.6 miles, which is longer than I've ever swum. I have to bike 728 miles, which is longer than I've ever biked, and I have to run 170 miles after that. So I'm doing a 914 mile race. So it's right now my training is really ramping up to really long distances, and it can get very overwhelming at times, right? I think all day on the bike for like 12, 14 hours and realize that my race, I might cover 150 to 200 miles, but my race is 728 miles. So when it starts to boggle the mind. And sometimes I have to remind myself that, I also, if I'm going to do this, I need to enjoy this, right? I want to have, right? So today I had time for about a 2-hour swim. And, what I wanted to do is I didn't want to go to the pool and just be like dreading, oh, I've got to swim all these laps, and just dread it. So my whole approach today was I'm going to get in the pool and remind myself why I love to swim.
I love it.
Swimming, the freedom of moving through the water, the joy I get from being able to move and have that fluid and just have that time to think nothing about the rest of the world, kind of tune out everything else in the process and just focus on moving through the water. And, that was what I needed in that moment to do something I wasn't really excited about doing, but I know that it would be better for me if I did it.
Yeah.
So finding those moments of joy, saying yes to those little things throughout the day, where you could either go in it with dread, oh, I've got to do this, or
exactly.
What can I find? I say it when I'm training, I say, look for the high notes. Sometimes you're doing something and it's monotonous or it's boring or it's hard. But if you look for it, there's always a way to find some high notes in it. Good points. You can say, this might have been really hard, but I made it till the end, or I kept my form really good, or I stayed focused, or whatever it is that was a good thing, I want to focus on and not the part that I was dreading or the part that was hard. Because if I can bring some joy and some movement and some activity, some thankfulness and gratitude, it keeps me going all the time. Is I'm grateful all the friggin' time of all of people to do and what I'm blessed with. And, if I'm swimming and I'm biking and running, I am feeling grateful that I had that opportunity and I have the ability to do that. And I don't lose sight of that because I know everybody doesn't have that. And
it's just also like a shift in our mind. Instead of, I have to do this, I get to do this, want to do this. Well, you are so inspiring to so many people. I love this story. I can keep talking to you over and over because it's so inspiring that no matter what your age is, you can go out there and do it and create those BHAGs and then yourself just a little bit further. So just really quickly share with us what's up next for you, what your next big goal is, and how that can inspire those who are listening and watching.
This year, I am doing what I call Teton 914, which is what I just explained. It's a 15.6 mile swim, a 720 mile bike, and a 170.4 mile run. It's the equivalent of doing 6.5 Ironmans continuously. And that's in honor of me turning 65 this year.
Yes.
So, I love it. As I age, I want to keep, getting myself out there, keep saying yes for as long as I can.
Yes.
And so this definitely scares me. So it fits my litmus test of, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big.
Yes.
It scares me. I'm worried, but it's also, I am so excited. I've got crew that are coming from all over the country. I've got my best friend from New Zealand who's flying over to be part of this journey. So I've got a lot to be grateful for.
Yes.
And just going to go out there and do what I can. There's actually a company that reached out to me at the beginning of the year that is filming a documentary of my journey, which is very exciting.
Very exciting, yes.
Yeah.
So definitely keep us posted on that and how you do, because we want to follow that story. That's super exciting. So thank you so much for joining us here. And I know you got some juicy nuggets from Will today. Even if you never go out and run an Ironman or actually participate in an Ironman, because there's lots of different components, right, to an Ironman, no matter if you go out there and run at all, participate in an Ironman, there's lots of things that you can learn from listening to Will. So we'll have all his information in the show notes, and make sure that you're setting those BHAGs and saying yes to those small things that are showing up in your life, pushing yourself outside your boundaries, because you never know what you're capable of. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Are you ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness? CFO, Chief Fun Officer, #1 best-selling author, and keynote speaker Blaze Rector is ready to help you do that. At just 10 years old, he's already written 2 #1 best-selling books. Through the power of storytelling, he uses lessons learned and shares strategies, tips, tactics, and tools to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live a more amazing life. So if you're ready to do that in your own life, grab a copy of his #1 best-selling books at jessicarector.com/store. And when you order your copies, he will personally autograph them and write you a message on those books before shipping them out to you to really inspire and empower you in your life. These books are great for adults and kids alike. So if you're ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness, make sure you grab your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Enjoy those amazing, empowering, transformational books. Did you know that the 2 biggest issues impacting the workforce are mental health and burnout? Well, we have your solution. The more that you feel burned out, the more it impacts your mental health. The more your mental health is impacted, the more it leads to burnout. So it's a vicious cycle that goes around and around, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can help them both if you're intentional and strategic with it. We have lots of resources for you at jessicarector.com/store. One that I want to highlight that really enhances your mental health is Tame Your Brain Game, 52 tips to turn negative thoughts into positive action. Now, research shows that 80% of your thoughts are negative. No matter how positive you feel, it's the pattern and the habit that you've developed over the course of years, over the course of decades. And that can often impact your life, how you show up, how you lead, how you communicate, how you engage, whether at work or at home. And then it also impacts a work environment. All you need is one NN or TT, negative Nancy or toxic Tim, to really impact that work environment. So if you are ready to enhance your mental health, get your copy of Tame Your Brain Game, 52 tips to turn negative thoughts into positive action today at jessicarector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you. Thank you so much for being here. Check us out at thesayesexperience.com. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. With your help in sharing our podcast, we can do that. Follow us on all social media at the Say Yes Experience and join our free community at facebook.com/groups/the Say Yes Experience. Thank you again to our guest. You can find all the contact information for our guest in the show notes. Thank you to our CFO, Chief Fun Officer, Blaze Rector, our business advisor, Lisa Verhurick, and to our team at Jessica Rector Enterprises. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Have an amazing day and keep being a rock star.